Let's recall again some important definitions about cybersecurity or network security, which are the assets, threats, and vulnerabilities. What is the meaning of each of these important terminologies in the world of cybersecurity? Assets means everything that have value for an organization or impact on its business continuity. Assets may include the personnel, the hardware, the software, the physical devices owned by this organization. Some documents owned by these organizations are all assets for these organizations. Assets should be identified to create information security system. A security specialist should ask and should know precisely what he is trying to protect. What is the most precious thing in this organization that you are trying to protect and that you fear to get lost or to get breached by the CIA confidentiality, integrity, or availability. It should be clear what are your assets. Assets may differ from one place to another. The assets of the hospital is the medical records of the patients. The assets of a telecommunication operator is the accounts of the users. The assets of the bank is the bank accounts of the clients, and so on. Every organization has its own assets and has its own priorities in protecting its asset. An asset is what we are trying to protect. That's why we should know as security specialists what are the assets exactly. The threats. The threats may be person, thing, event, or idea which poses danger to an asset. The threat in terms of that breaks the asset's confidentiality, integrity, or availability, or causes some malfunctioning in the legitimate use of such asset. So it may cause denial of service on using such asset. So the threat is something trying to harm or damage one of your assets. A possible means by which a security policy may be breached is loss of integrity or confidentiality. This is a threat. Anything that can exploit a vulnerability intentionally or accidentally and obtain damage or destroy an asset is a threat. So it can be potential. It can be possible that this threat breaks the CIA confidentiality, integrity, availability of an asset. So it must be considered as threat, and it must be thought of how to face it, how to eliminate it, and how to get rid of it. A threat is what we are trying to protect against. Vulnerability. This is the weakness. This is the backdoor. This is the hole in our system. Weakness or absence of safeguards. This is the gap in the security program. It can be exploited by threats to gain unauthorized access to an asset. This is the danger of the vulnerability. When the vulnerability meets the threat, then risk exists. High vulnerability, high threat means high risk. If the vulnerability is low, the threat is high. If the vulnerability is high and the threat is low, so the risk may be low. But it is very dangerous to let the vulnerability go high and the threat go high, so your risk will be very high and it needs addressing at once. A vulnerability is a weakness or gap in our protection efforts. There is always a vulnerability in your system. Your duty is to explore your systems against vulnerability, strengthen, patch your systems, and try to let your vulnerability meets no threats at the same time to minimize or to eliminate risk as much as possible. Thank you.